All right, welcome back to One Bills Live here on a Tuesday, coming to you live from the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis. Chris Brown, Steve Tasker, and joined by Bills General Manager Brandon Beane. And we want to remind you, Ticketmaster is the title sponsor of this year's NFL Scouting Combine coverage. Ticketmaster is the official ticketing partner of the NFL and the Buffalo Bills. Brandon, thanks for making some time. As always, we appreciate the annual visit we get here with you in Indy. And you got some good news to share with everybody. Khalil Shakir is under contract through 2029. How quick did that come together?
Yeah, I mean, we're thrilled to, it's not pen to paper yet, but we're thrilled to come to an agreement here just, a couple hours ago, and I know that news just broke. But, Khalil, as you guys know, is just what a pro, done everything exactly the right way, and he's one of those guys, he doesn't say much, he just lets his play speak for itself, and a highly respected guy in our locker room, and that's what you want to do. You want to reward the guys that are like Khalil. That I think you'd have a hard time finding someone to say a bad word about Khalil Shakir and what he's brought to our team the last 3 years, and what we'll count on him to bring for years to come.
Yeah, and it is always a deal when you sign a player. It's a big moment for them, big moment for the franchise. It's in it, but you got to do that like 50 more times this offseason. and there's a list of guys that are strong considerations. And how many guys have you called? I mean, obviously James Cook has been a topic of discussion because he's eligible now. You got a guy like Christian Benford who has far outperformed his draft status.
Terrell
Bernard has become almost indispensable. So you got some other guys that are eligible, deserving, guys you just plain love. So how do you approach that priority-wise?
Yeah, and all the guys you mentioned there fit our philosophy of draft, develop, and extend, re-sign, however you want to do it. So there is a cap, and so you're always worrying about that. And we have lost guys that we would have loved to extend, in the past, because you still have to fit it in. And sometimes we do go out there and say, man, there is a position that we don't have on here that we need to improve, that we will do it by a free agency or trade or whatever that may be. So we still have to consider all those moves. But, yes, we've had discussions with guys. Some we'll have here with their representatives. Some, even if we haven't, maybe we will in a week or two. It's a giant puzzle, and as you see one deal take shape, that can kind of point you, okay, we have this, now we can do this. And we have a couple of weeks that we have to get into cap compliant, and some deals you do can help you with the cap. Yeah. You can actually move some things down. Some will hurt you on the cap. So we're balancing all that, and just because we don't sign a guy today, next week, doesn't mean we wouldn't, later in the spring or summer be able to get that done.
It always seems like there's a little bit of a season right before training camp, or right at training camp.
Extension season.
Yeah.
Did Spencer last year that way.
Right.
As we know, James Cook did a little posturing on social media, then pulled it back. It seems like his intentions, though, for all intents and purposes, are pure. He just wants to get fair market value in his estimation, and Coach addressed it to some extent yesterday. Where do we feel he falls in that line of consideration that you were just discussing?
Yeah, love James. I mean, you're never going to get me to say a bad word. I mean, what he's done and the improvement and the maturity and all the things that he's brought, and had some explosive plays for us this year, some tough runs too, not just the explosive ones. So we want James here. We've as he alluded to, we've had conversations. I'd prefer those all be kept in house. Right. We've generally had more success that way. But I love James, and I love who he is. He is pure as anyone. And so I understand, and like anything, everyone wants what they believe is their fair value. Sometimes you don't always see eye to eye, and again, we don't talk about negotiations publicly, but I love James Cook, and hopefully we can keep him in Buffalo for the foreseeable future. But again, when you work on deals, whether it's his or someone else, like Khalil's, you have to come to a consensus that we all think this is a fair value to get the deal. And there's been plenty of guys here we've been able to do that with, and then there's been some guys that by the time their contract expired, we hadn't, and they go test the water.
Yeah. Speaking of which, the salary cap. When might you find out what it's actually going to be?
You have an idea now, but
we at least got an idea. We got the range, which was nice. Hopefully here very soon. I know they're in the final negotiations with the PA and the NFL Management Council on how things are allotted, but we at least kind of know where it's. We've got it down to 277 to roughly 281. So, a solid increase again this year. Maybe not as much as last year, but still, still solid.
It's a lot of money, but it's still only about 3% off or 2.5% that you don't know. You
You're
point
still, and those are players, so
yes.
It does matter, and it could matter. Hey, you know what? Maybe it's one less player you have to release or move on from,
right.
or maybe you can structure a deal a little bit differently because it's $3 million difference. So it does matter. And hopefully we'll get that real soon. But we were glad to get that information last week to at least give us the floor at a minimum.
There you go,
And when we get the floor, that's what we operate. So today we're operating off a 277.5, and if we get a bump, we get a bump.
And speaking of that, you've got a player in Von Miller who had really nice pressure rate there at the end of the season for you. Hurrying throws, ill-advised throws from your opponents because of him. He was a guy that worked with you last year to adjust his contract to help you guys out. How do you approach that and navigate that, though, as a GM when you've gone to the well once already? And, I mean, look, I don't think I have to tell you or anybody else. He turns 36 next year, and maybe he's not your average 36-year-old. I think we would all agree on that. But, it's hard not to look at what the numbers say and say, oh, wow, he would be a pretty big cap savings for this team. But they love Von. How do they work that?
Yeah. No, I mean, let's just start with last year. What Von did for this team, I don't know if I've ever seen anyone or heard of someone take less than what they were guaranteed. And he did a very team-friendly, I know I was injured, I want to be here, I want to see this thing through. And, big-time kudos for that. That is, you're talking about a first ballot Hall of Famer that did that. There's a lot of guys that have a lot of pride in this league, rightfully so, for what they've done. And that just showed you how bad he wanted to make this work in Buffalo and help us chase a championship. As far as this year, we're working through everything. We'll meet with his people. Vaughn and I have even, texted or spoken after the season. So, again, we've got some time before we have to make, some final rostering decisions. And as we said, every little thing matters with the cap or extensions, things like that. So I would say, decisions like that are still fluid.
Yeah. I put Sean on the spot. I was going to ask him, when do you find out about the compensatory picks? Is there a date? I pointed to the website. They show you 10 picks, and you think you do, right?
Yeah. We should. Did Sean give you a very good compensatory calculated formula answer?
Well, we'll find out.
Definitely. No. And the slide rule and the abacus were not involved either.
Did he break down how it all works and everything?
A sliding scale.
Yeah, he let me in a little. He gave me a peek behind the curtain. It wasn't pretty.
It wasn't pretty. You don't want to look behind that curtain again.
Something tells me he's not looking behind the same curtain you are.
Yeah, that's right. So
the answer is, I know last year we had the thing we should have got the third. There was a rule deal, but we should have. It's not confirmed until you get it. You don't know, but we believe by everything we've been told, including our contact with the league, that it'll be 2/5, and so hopefully that'll be confirmed. I would say next week to 10 days, maybe.
Okay. Looking at the defensive class in this draft class, we saw Kansas City in the 22 draft pretty much refortify their defensive roster in almost one draft class, that Trent McDuffie class. Are you encouraged by the depth of defensive talent in this year's class to think that perhaps you could refortify your defense in a similar way?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we're definitely working through that. Last night was night one of interviewing some of these young men, so I love that part of it. We've seen the guys with their helmets on, watching them compete, maybe even prior to this year, as they've come up. So last night we got 11 or 12 guys in front of us. We've got a full slate again tonight and tomorrow. So, and the defense is here first. So it was all defense last night. Yes, I mean, like, you're always looking. Our goal is, whether it's offense, defense, whatever, we want early key contributors. Some guys mature, some things work out fast. And it's always, what school did they come from? What, did they have this much volume of defense at school X and now it's going to here, or were they playing in a more of a system that's got pro coaches that have a higher volume that they're so. That's part of what we're finding out between now and the draft. What is their football foundation? Just because they know this doesn't, this small amount doesn't mean they're not smart and they can't learn. It could be that coach just wants to keep it simple. I'm not worried about how smart these guys are. I'm going to let them play fast. Well, the volume that we use in the pros and every team is going to be heavier. So sometimes that takes, whereas year one, they don't always translate as fast. You would love for them all to, and we will work, for whatever guys we draft, whether it's, more defense than offense, whatever it is, it's our job to get them lined up, take the best players that fit us both on the field and off the field.
Okay, last one. So I remember we've seen the footage of you in drafts past up in the suite watching guys run the 40, right? Mm-hmm. Who are you going to be cheering for to run slow this year?
I've got some names listed.
Yeah, all right, okay, all right, that's good.
I've got some names listed.
Sometimes you get sold on a guy. You don't need to see him test, right?
Yeah, no, you love it, and we talk about that. We actually do some pretty good bantering in our draft room. We meet for 2 weeks with the college scouts right before we come here, and we put some laughable, wagers on the board at each other. Just
that's right.
And at the end of the draft after April, we go back through those and we torture each other. And you got to do the walk of shame when you lose. You
gotta take his name off the board.
Exactly. So there's definitely a good amount of bantering that's already started.
The best.
And so we'll see though. There are definitely some guys that we know, or we say, I don't know how well he's going to test, but the guy's a damn good football player.
Right. Yeah. Brandon, thanks for the time.
Thanks,
As always,
man.
good luck
Enjoy
good luck getting your work done this week.
Appreciate you guys.
And we'll see you down the line here in the offseason.